Walker Lynn's attorneys say none of the 5 letters he attempted to send his parents ever reached them, including one in which he discussed legal representation. But today, Attorney General John Ashcroft again insisted the detainee willingly waived his rights to an attorney. Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, Alexandria, Virginia. Sources inside the State Department tell ABC News that a memo prepared by Secretary Powell asking the White House to review the status of the detainees is intended to ensure that international standards are maintained so that any American troops taken hostage will be afforded their rights under the Geneva Convention for Prisoners of War. Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, Washington. Hello, Linda. As you can see behind me, the lines are moving quite smoothly here today at Washington's Ronald Reagan National Airport. Now, earlier this morning, there were longer lines. The lines, in fact, came all the way to where our camera is right now. But now the lines have shortened. However, I have spoken to a number of people behind the scenes at the airport today, and they say don't be fooled by appearances. It is a busy holiday weekend. The Secretary of Transportation, Norm Mineta, said yesterday that in the wake of the September 11th attacks, patience at the airport is a new form of patriotism. So any airport travelers who do experience some delays should keep that in mind. But so far, things moving smoothly here today at Reagan National Airport.
Rebecca
Linda
Cooper joins us now live from Washington with the very latest. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Steve. John Walker was transferred Tuesday from an aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea to a military plane in Kandahar, where he will be transported to the United States today. California native John Walker Lynn arrives in the United States today, facing charges of conspiring to kill Americans for his role as a Taliban fighter serving on the front line of Osama bin Laden's war to destroy the United States. Late Tuesday night in Afghanistan, following busy preparations on the ground, Walker arrived at the U.S. airbase in Kandahar under tight security. The Pentagon won't comment on the precise details of Walker's trip to the United States today, but says he is being transported on a C-17 cargo plane like the one seen here. The plane can make long-range flights without having to land for refueling, something officials say they want to avoid so that Walker can't try and claim asylum in a foreign country. Walker will be tried at this district courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia, but first he'll be held in custody by the U.S. Department of Justice.
He will go where they want him. He will not go to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. What kind of a cell he is put into is up to the prison that he is held in during the period that he's being processed through the criminal justice system of the United States.
Walker was captured during fighting on the ground in Afghanistan and was turned over to U.S. custody in November after a prison uprising in Mazar-e-Sharif, where American CIA agent Johnny Spann was beaten and killed. Steve, Walker has reportedly said in interviews with the FBI that he knew al-Qaeda suicide fighters were being sent to the United States. He has also said in interviews that he volunteered to serve on the Taliban front line, wanting to support the radical Islamic fundamentalist regime. Live in Washington, I'm Rebecca Cooper, ABC News. Steve, back to you.
You know, Rebecca, you feel sorry for his parents that are going through so much right now, and they've got to stand by his defense. What are they doing right now along with the lawyer?
Steve, his parents are actually quite frustrated. They have not had the opportunity to speak to their son since he has been taken into U.S. custody, nor has he had the opportunity to meet with a lawyer. His lawyer that his parents have retained is, in fact, in Washington today. He's hoping to meet with Walker. But I should note that Attorney General John Ashcroft has actually told ABC News that Walker has repeatedly waived his rights to an attorney, not only in meetings with government agents, but, Steve, he also, according to Attorney General Ashcroft, has signed a waiver forfeiting his rights to an attorney. But his parents want him to meet with a lawyer as soon as possible. Steve?
And now we have a special treat in the paper section.
I know. Rebecca Cooper from Washington has this late-breaking news item. This just in.
I have got the news you can use. It's from Elaine Monahan, a Reuters reporter who covers the State Department, and she says that yesterday the State Department had a town hall meeting for all of the employees who are taking antibiotics because they found anthrax at various State Department buildings. One of the workers asked the doctor whether the antibiotics she's taking is going to hurt her sex life.
Oh, my.
And the doctor says no. The good news is Cipro and other antibiotics has no negative sexual side effects.
Wow.
So I thought with all the thousands of people out there now having to take antibiotics because of this scare, one little piece of good news out there, the sex life for all these postal employees and federal workers should be fine.
I think that's going to be a big relief to a lot of people.
Did anybody ask if it helps, like a Viagra kind of bounce or anything like that?
Without naming names, I will say one of our executive producers did ask why Congress hadn't asked this same question, but without naming any names.
Well, now, you know, you don't want to say it helps because there's already enough of a run on Cipro as it is.
This is true.
You know,
This is true.
this-
Thanks, Rebecca.
Pakistani soldiers today continue the nearly impossible task of patrolling the rocky border with Afghanistan, searching for any al-Qaeda and Taliban fighters attempting to flee across the White Mountains. Osama bin Laden and other top Taliban and al-Qaeda leaders continue to elude capture, and officials acknowledge that until the top leaders have been caught, the war is far from over.
The campaign remains in place to make sure all our objectives are secure. And that includes tracking down those responsible for the terrorism in Afghanistan. So until that is done, our mission is not complete.
The casket-carrying Army Sergeant Nathan Chapman arrived Sunday at Ramstein Air Force Base. Chapman's former commanding officer says the 34-year-old father of two volunteered for his latest assignment.
He was happy to go on a mission like this because it was challenging, and he knew that he'd be doing some good.
Soldiers from Fort Hood, Texas, left Sunday for the U.S. Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as part of a military police force assigned to guard al-Qaeda and Taliban prisoners. Senior administration officials tell ABC News that a group of al-Qaeda operatives arrested in Singapore had been planning to blow up the American embassy there, as well as the embassy of several American allies, including Great Britain. Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, Washington.
And ABC's Rebecca Cooper joins us now with more on that. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Derek. White House aides who have seen the videotape say that on the tape, Osama bin Laden indicates that he thought the World Trade Center towers would be damaged, but not destroyed. Osama bin Laden also reportedly discusses the men involved in the attacks, indicating that at least some of the men thought they were being sent on a hijacking mission, but did not know that they were being sent on a suicide mission. President Bush portrayed Osama bin Laden as a coward hiding in caves, sending young men out to die for his cause.
For those who see this tape, they'll realize that not only is he guilty of incredible murder, he has no conscience and no soul, that he represents the worst of civilization.
Derek, the White House is now indicating that they plan to publicly release the videotape, and they are suggesting that they may bring in an outside expert who will provide a translation to verify what the White House says shows that Osama bin Laden was the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks.
Well, now, Rebecca, if this tape is indeed the smoking gun that removes all doubt, why the hesitation in releasing it?
It's interesting because the White House has reportedly had this videotape in their possession for several weeks, but they did not want it revealed because although earlier reports indicated that it was simply found in a house that had been evacuated inside Jalalabad, it's now being suggested that perhaps they may have gotten it from a valuable source inside Jalalabad that the CIA values and does not want to expose.
ABC's Rebecca Cooper is here now with the details. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Derek. The 30-page indictment charges Zacarias Moussaoui with conspiracy to commit capital crimes punishable by death, including conspiring to murder U.S. federal employees and commit acts of terrorism. Prosecutors say Moussaoui intended to participate in the September 11th hijackings and was only stopped when he was detained in August after a Minnesota flight school became suspicious of Moussaoui's interest in flying large jets.
The indictment issued today is a chronicle of evil, a carefully documented year by year, month by month, day by day account of a terrorist conspiracy that gathered both force and intensity in the weeks before September the 11th.
Derek, the Justice Department included 23 unindicted co-conspirators in the charges, including Osama bin Laden and other top al-Qaeda leaders.
Now, Rebecca, Americans are still waiting to see this videotape that purports to show Osama bin Laden basically implicating himself. What more do we know about it?
I spoke to a senior U.S. intelligence source who told me that they believe the videotape was shot in Kandahar. They think on November 9th at a dinner honoring a visiting Muslim sheikh. ABC News has obtained a transcript of the tape, and in it, bin Laden discusses his role in planning and executing the attacks, discrediting the notion that the attacks may have been planned without bin Laden's direct participation. Some people had suggested that these may have been individual terrorist cells, but in fact, the transcript shows that bin Laden had direct knowledge of the attacks.
So what kind of knowledge did bin Laden display?
Well, for example, on the tapes, he is seen discussing with the sheikh that he calculated before the attacks that the jet fuel would cause the steel in the upper parts of the World Trade Center to burn and collapse, but he never expected the entire structure to collapse. And he told the sheikh, praise be to God, celebrating the tower's complete collapse.
Wow. ABC's Rebecca Cooper, thank you so much this morning.
Now we continue our week-long series on the challenges and priorities facing the Bush administration with a look at the new president's energy policy. ABC's Rebecca Cooper joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Jim.
So the last problem President Bush wanted to deal with in his first week in office would be an energy crisis in California, but he's of course faced with that. How is he handling it?
Well, right now, probably privately, George Bush is saying thanks for nothing, California. They didn't deliver any of their 54 electoral votes to him. They gave them to Al Gore, and then they handed him one of his first major crises in his administration. He was forced into a difficult situation this week. He had to agree to a bailout, and that forced neighboring states and outside utilities to continue shipping power supplies to California. He was reluctant to do that, but the concern in the Bush White House was that they might be blamed if the economy took a downturn in California and there was a ripple effect on the economy. But they're warning this is the one bailout they're going to provide California, and then it's up to California to provide their own solutions. There's Republicans in neighboring states, and they're not happy about this.
How about OPEC? One thing President Bush claimed he was making during the campaign was he would deal be more tough with OPEC. Will he have any success?
Well, you know, it's very common for candidates to say they're going to be tougher with foreign countries, and then when they get into office, they find, as the Bush White House has, that there's diplomacy that has to be played as well. So privately, one member of the administration told me they're in a difficult situation. They want to be tough on OPEC. OPEC has refused to back down. In fact, they are decreasing production. The price of oil per barrel is now inching closer and closer into the $30 per barrel range, and that's a real problem for the Bush administration. Publicly, they're still saying that they're going to take that get tough approach, but privately they're admitting that they've got to play the game of diplomacy like every other president, and it's going to be difficult to have any influence on the OPEC countries.
In a nutshell, the Bush energy policy is getting more supply of gas and oil, that sort of thing. For instance, opening up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. That's his aim. He's going to stick with that.
He would like to. It's going to be very controversial. His nominee for Secretary of the Interior, Gail Norton, is already being strongly criticized for that, for supporting that initiative. The Arctic National Wilderness Refuge is an enormous refuge. I've been up there. It's enormous, and he says it won't affect the overall wilderness protection. But it's going to face a lot of criticism in Congress. But he says that's the answer to bringing down oil and gas prices.
All right, thanks very much. That's ABC's Rebecca Cooper in Washington. Now we continue our week-long series on the challenges facing the Bush administration with a look at the new president's policy on Medicare, prescription drugs. ABC's Rebecca Cooper joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Jim.
So Medicare prescription drugs, in Bush's list of priorities, it does fall somewhat behind education and tax cuts. What does that mean about when he's likely to get to Medicare?
He promised during the campaign that Medicare reform and providing more prescription drugs at lower cost to elderly Americans were going to be top priorities. But the plans that he's introduced are already meeting resistance on Capitol Hill, and it's going to take at least a year for them to even begin sorting out their differences. But members of both parties know, and the president knows, they have to deliver on this. This is an issue that voters send a strong signal they care strongly about. So they're going to have to at least pretend to be dealing with it.
So what are the details of Bush's plan at this stage? I think what he's been talking about is setting up a task force, essentially.
Exactly. What President Bush has suggested is that he set up a White House task force to recommend changes on how to overhaul Medicare. And Senator Trent Lott, the Senate Majority Leader, suggested that what they do is simply vote up or down on the task force proposal without any amendments. And basically, the translation of that means let's let the task force take the politically unpopular hits if they make changes to Medicare that may be unpopular with voters but are necessary to save the system.
All right, quickly now, just on prescription drugs, his plan is a bit less ambitious than some in Congress.
Well, that's right. You've been talking this morning about the words of Chairman Greenspan. And one of the caveats that Chairman Greenspan gave to his endorsement of tax cuts is that it cannot be coupled with high spending increases. And providing prescription drugs to all Americans is going to be costly. Bush is trying to just target his to lower income Americans. But even Republicans are criticizing that, saying it needs to be more spread out to all elderly Americans. And now Bush is getting some criticism from Clinton on this plan. Not President Clinton, but Senator Clinton. She came out strongly this week at a speech here in Washington saying that prescription drugs need to be universally provided to all older Americans. So he's got his work cut out for him.
All right, thanks very much. That's ABC's Rebecca Cooper from our Washington Bureau.
Rebecca's there to ask me questions about Social Security when we're done with this.
Oh, God.
She never misses a trick. She never sleeps. That's what makes her so special. Or crazy, I don't know.
Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, the State Department. The Bush administration is now saying it will move quickly to protect postal workers in the future. Derek?
ABC's Rebecca Cooper in Washington. Thank you much.
ABC News has learned that CIA Director George Tenet came to Camp David to meet with both Barack and Arafat to discuss security issues in the event of a final accord. With the sense that time is running out for the increasingly exhausted negotiators, the White House says it's decision-making time. And President Clinton will announce today, before he leaves for Arkansas, whether these talks will continue. Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, Thurmont, Maryland. Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, Washington. Live in Washington, I'm Rebecca Cooper for ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Dave, back to you. And I'm Rebecca Cooper for ABC News. Joanne, back to you. Rebecca Cooper, ABC News, Washington. Mr. President, the Speaker said you should call him today. Are you going to call him?
He did?
He said you know his phone number.
I talk to him all the time.
Are you going to call him today or tomorrow?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. We're waiting to hear from the President.
Mr. Speaker, we asked the President that last week. He said he calls you all the time. Who's going to blink first on this? It seems like...
I haven't talked to the President in several weeks. I mean,
You haven't been in town.
Are you not returning his numbers if he calls you all
no,
the time?
no. I'm just saying I don't know what he's referring to, but we haven't talked in weeks.
Good morning, Steve. You know, President Bush last spoke to Congress 9 days after the September 11th attacks. And last night, his message focused on the new challenges facing a nation at war. In his first State of the Union address, President Bush's message to the country and the world was sobering but defiant.
Our nation is at war. Our economy is in recession. And the civilized world faces unprecedented dangers. Yet the state of our union has never been stronger.
Despite misgivings expressed by international allies and members of Congress, the president made it clear that he plans to carry the war on terrorism well beyond Afghanistan, singling out Iraq, Iran, and North Korea by name and issuing this ultimatum.
The United States of America will not permit the world's most dangerous regimes to threaten us with the world's most destructive weapons.
Acknowledging new warnings from the General Accounting Office about growing deficits, President Bush still called for a number of new spending programs, including increased funding for Homeland Security, unemployment and health care benefits, and the largest defense spending increase in 2 decades. And just as Democrats were beginning to back down on calls to repeal the current round of tax cuts, the president challenged Congress to make them permanent. Democrats warmly applauded the president throughout his speech. But in the official response, aspiring presidential candidate Richard Gephardt said unity on the war does not mean unanimity on domestic policy.
Our values call for tax cuts that promote growth and prosperity for all Americans. Our values call for protecting Social Security and not gambling it away on the stock market. Our values call for helping patients and older Americans, not just big HMOs and pharmaceutical companies.
Last night, President Bush praised Democrats for helping to pass his education plan, but he also urged Congress to pass new trade legislation, his economic stimulus proposal, and pension reform legislation, carefully avoiding mentioning Enron, a major Republican campaign contributor, by name. Today, President Bush takes his message directly to the American public with speeches in North Carolina and Florida. Live in Washington, I'm Rebecca Cooper, ABC News. Now back to you.